What's up, guys? Thank you so much for tuning into another Operation A5 podcast. Here we are today with the boys, home team. We're missing Joe and Alex today. We love you guys wherever you guys are at. But today we're going to get into a couple of random items, I would say. It's going to be a fun episode today.
Yeah.
Current events.
Yeah.
A lot of crazy stuff happening over the weekend. Former President Donald Trump was shot in an assassination attempt. Crazy stuff we're living in right now. Yeah.
Have you seen that video that it shows him talking and they did like a breakdown, right? Like
Yeah. It's kind of like slow-mo.
Yeah. If he hadn't talked or turned his head, that thing would have gone through an eye.
Yeah. There was another video where like they were showing from the perspective of the shooter, like his head was like on the crosshair.
Yeah.
And the moment he literally looks to the side, how it missed him. I mean, crazy stuff, man.
How do you guys feel about people who are saying that it was a move of God?
I mean, I'm not into politics or anything. I don't really watch politics. The only thing I do have to say about this is that, it's okay to have your differences, right? In political views and stuff like that. I just don't think it needs to go to the extreme of wanting to kill a former president or someone that's running for election, right?
Right.
I think it shows more of the person or the person that tried to kill, right? More who they are.
Of course.
Right. And I think it goes back to you idolize a man instead of what the politics are, right? Well, instead of what politics and things are. So that's kind of my only thing.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I mean, we kind of spoke about that in one of the last episodes we did. We spoke a little bit about politics. And again, we're not here endorsing a political candidate or a political party. We're just observing and reacting to current events. And that was crazy. I mean, just the odds of the shot being missed and the odds of him turning his head to not get assassinated at the last millisecond. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into it. Was it divine intervention? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, certainly God allowed it, right? Like God,
it's crazy, man. It really is. The problem with
where was it again? That this happened?
Pennsylvania.
Butler, Pennsylvania.
I think the problem is when people start idolizing Trump, like this is, God's chosen, and almost putting him up on a Messiah level pedestal. I think that's when it gets dangerous. Again, I don't know. Did God protect him? I don't know. We'll have to ask him one day. But
crazy question. Do you think it was an inside job?
That's conspiracies.
I don't know, man. I really don't know. I don't know.
It's funny you mentioned that because I was watching the Stephen A. Smith podcast, and he was just talking about
Stephen A. Come to the show.
The New York
how
Knicks.
basically it was just the craziness of it, but it kind of, in his eyes and in his mind, is pretty much like handing Donald Trump the election.
Yeah,
because of that, like just that moment. He said that you don't get a better picture of the one that were taken of him, like lifting up the hand, the American flag.
He was screaming out "fight."
Yeah, so I mean, it was just one of those things.
I will say that picture was pretty bad. Yes,
I mean, it's gonna go down in history as one of the most iconic pictures of U.S. history, whether you agree with it or not. Just the moment, again, hate him, love him. Just the event, an assassination attempt. Again, the last one was Ronald Reagan.
Yeah, that was the attempt.
The attempt, exactly. The last assassination attempt, I believe, was him and
another celebrity president, right? If I'm not mistaken.
I'm not sure. There you got me. I don't know.
Oh snap!
I'm not sure. There you
Google it, y'all. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but no, I think it is. I think he was.
He was an actor or something.
Yeah, he was another celebrity president.
I didn't even know that.
Trump was the second.
But again, still a U.S. president, arguably the most important or most powerful man in the world.
Yeah.
And a former president to try to get assassinated. I mean, these types of things shouldn't be happening in the U.S. We pride ourselves as a country where, we put democracy first, and, we don't try to sway elections by corruption or political persecution. We let the people vote and choose who they want to be their leader. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose.
Yep.
So an assassination attempt, regardless, I mean, I wouldn't wish that on Biden. I wouldn't wish that on RFK. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. So
Yep.
pretty crazy stuff.
Yeah. And then I think to Chris's point, I think one thing that we were talking about before, the camera started rolling was should Christians be believing or looking into conspiracy theories? And the reason why we framed it in that sense is because I feel like you got to be careful with what you look at, right? At the end of the day, Jesus is king.
Amen.
So to your point of there's no need to idolize anybody. At the end of the day, whoever wins, they will always let you down one way or another.
Right.
They're never going to hit every single preference you have, every single standard you have, right? Which I know that's something I said in the episode we recorded for Christians in politics. But to me, it's just that, like, just be careful where you get your facts from, right?
Yeah.
Because not everything is reputable, not everything makes sense. And sometimes, I think when it's a Christian looking into things, we obviously have to take the spiritual into account. And it's something that I was talking to Chris about the other day.
That's crazy.
You gotta be careful with what you read, what you look into, because you can open doors. Again, focusing solely on spiritual, you can open doors to certain things and certain influences, and you don't want to. I don't know. I'm not trying to say you're gonna have an exorcism on your hands, rotating your head and projectile
Go down the
vomiting.
rabbit hole that then you don't know how did I even end up here in the first place?
Correct.
Yeah.
So yeah, you just got to be careful. I don't think it's wrong. I believe in conspiracy theories myself. I don't know if it was an inside job, the assassination.
Yeah,
attempt.
I mean, in regards to the Trump situation, man, I just the thing is, like, there's so much security, right? Mm-hmm. And just for it to slip like that,
right?
That's crazy.
There was definitely some negligence on the part of the Secret Service,
1000%.
because I've heard so many things. Again, I don't know if it was an inside job, but I've heard that supposedly the Secret Service or the local authorities
were aware.
Yeah. Well, not necessarily that we're aware. I read that there was a cop that confronted the kid. He went up the roof, and then the kid pointed the rifle at him.
And then the cop jumped off the roof,
ran away. Mm-hmm. And but then why didn't that cop report it?
Right.
I mean, there's so many things.
Right.
I definitely
there's people who they
tried to report it, screamed it, saw it.
Yeah. There was a guy who on CNN, he got interviewed and he was like, I saw him, and I told the police and the Secret Service, like, hey, there's someone on that roof with a gun, and no one did anything. And he said that he reported like 5 minutes before it happened, or a few minutes before it happened. Still enough time for someone to get up there and stop him.
Right.
So again, there's so many gaps in the story. I'll say this. I don't think that it was the left who did it. I don't think it was the Democratic Party who did it. I think it was just someone who was disgruntled, like every other unfortunate shooting that we've had in this country and around 100%. The world, is someone who was upset. Why was he upset? I don't know. I mean, apparently he had registered Republican a few years prior. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So he was a Republican.
On paper.
Well, on paper, correct. On paper. So again, a lot of gaps in the story. Again, I don't know if it was an inside job. Now, I will say this. I wouldn't be surprised if it was.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was. Because governments, not just our government, but governments around the world, sometimes they do shady things to get some certain things done, you know? But yeah, that's my opinion.
Yeah. And then going back to what you were saying, right, is that I have this tendency myself to go into rabbit holes of conspiracy theories, right? I mean, what Renee was alluding to earlier was that, I went into this rabbit hole and I'm like, bro, you got to check this out, and it blew my mind. I'm like, bro, tell me this is real, bro, because it has to be real, right? Mm-hmm. But then I've also gone into other conspiracy theory that I've sent to you freaking out, which was the Quran. Was it the Quran?
Yeah.
you know, and it goes back to the principality of opening doors that you don't even know.
There you go. That's what I was saying. Yeah, you got to be careful.
I just feel like lighting my phone up and not even touching my phone ever again.
Again, it's just you got to be prepared for that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I believe that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. And there's evidence for the historical life of Jesus of Nazareth. There's arguments for the bodily resurrection of Jesus. I believe that we have the truth, right? So there's nothing that we can't debate or argue in favor of Christianity. Like, there's nothing that you could present to me that would scare me and be like, oh my goodness, I'm not going to be a Christian anymore.
Yeah.
But you got to be ready for that. And if you haven't studied, if you don't know the arguments, it can definitely shake you. So that's why when you first sent me that, I was like, bro, I get it. The guys who's talking about the Quran, defending Islam, like they're compelling, but there's also evidence for Christianity and arguments to combat those arguments from the Muslim scholar or apologist, whatever he was. But you got to be ready for that. You can't just, it's like going into a UFC fight and you've never trained it a day in your life. You're going to get beat up by whoever's
Derek
in front of
Lewis
you.
does that, and he does pretty well.
Well, Derek Lewis is also 300 pounds. And
He's a knockout artist.
correct.
Pretty close.
Pretty good. But I will say, right, because Chris, when he did, I think when you did that, when you were freaking out about the whole Quran thing, I think you weren't as mature as you are now. So I know that wouldn't happen again. If the Chris now saw those same videos and TikToks, you would be like, this ain't true, or whatever, whatever it was. I don't know the context to it, but yeah, just got to be careful. I think so again, to that point, I think you just have to be very mature in your faith. If you're going to start looking up conspiracy theories or looking into things, there's people who are really interested in demonology, right? And that's not a bad thing to learn, because I myself I'm in a Bible institute, right? I'm in school, and one of the things that we talk about is spiritual warfare and demonology, right? You have to know what you're again, to the UFC point, right? You got to know who your enemy is. You got to know their tactics. So the study of demonology is knowing, what demons are you dealing with? Is it a spirit of Leviathan? Is it a spirit of Molech? Is it a spirit of Jezebel, of Ahab, of this and that? So you have to know, because you have to know the symptoms, the red flags, whatever it is. But again, when it comes to that, you have to be very mature in your faith, because you will open certain doors if you're not prayed up, if you're not equipped, if you don't know the word already, like that. You got to be real careful.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to be ready, because there's a difference between spiritual warfare and simply education. I mean, again, you can study demonology, you can study different kinds of spirits within the spiritual realm and the things that you encounter in spiritual warfare. And then there's simply facts and history and theology that you can just study. It's different, right? It's a different kind of warfare. I would call it intellectual warfare, if you will, that you need different tools. I think you need both tools, right? Because I think oftentimes you have a lot of spiritually mature people who are on fire, but then intellectually can't even defend the Bible, the history behind it, the arguments for the existence of God. You need both, really. You need to be equipped on both ends. And one of the scriptures that I would go back to, it's in, it's 1 Peter or 2 Peter 3:15. It's always be prepared to give an answer for the hope that you have in Jesus Christ, right? I've always taken that so seriously, because whenever someone asks me, why do you believe what you believe in? I want to be ready to answer the question in whatever manner they need it, right? Some people, you can present Jesus from a logical way, historical, evidence-based way. Some people, you just got to tell them Jesus loves you and present the gospel as there's a God who created you and he loves you, has a purpose for your life. Some people are going to they're not going to care about that. So they're going to care about the logic, the facts, the arguments, the evidence. So you always got to be ready to give an answer. So that's where it comes into the spiritual warfare, and then the intellectual aspect of just being ready to answer questions, being ready to go down those rabbit holes. I would say just always be careful.
I got you.
Amen.
I'll share more videos.
One of the things that going into a little bit into that rabbit hole that left me a little bit shook on Sunday. Joe showed me, I guess it was a video of whatnot, but someone had predicted that was going to happen to Trump.
What? Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, someone prophesied it or something.
Yeah, so I was just like, what? That's crazy, in the sense of the exact same way how it happened. Now, the ending of it is like, I hope it's real in the sense of, from the aspect of, I guess, Trump has like an encounter with God.
Right.
So,
I mean, man, I'll tell you this: when I watched the RNC, and it was PBD, Patrick Bet David. Shout out Patrick Bet David, come on the show. And he's local,
Yes.
so he's local, so we could get him.
Or we'll go to you.
Or we'll go to you, yeah. Anyways, so he was saying in I think it was an interview with Pierce Morgan that he was like, if you look at the first night of the RNC when Trump is walking in, it's not your usual Donald Trump. Like, he looked humbled because he, usually he walks in and, his chest is puffed out. He walks in cocky. That's who, Donnie T is, you know what I'm saying? So he walks in and he just looked, I don't want to say defeated, but I really do want to say that with a different perspective on life. Like,
When you're that close to
when
death,
you're that close to death, man, I mean, he came in humbled. He looked humbled, and in a healthy way, and in his speech last night, which was lengthy, I think it was the longest one in RNC history, if I'm not mistaken, an hour and a half. I mean, that's what they said. And he just kept referencing God, and he was like, I am here by the grace of God. Now, I hope it's legit, right? Because I'll go on record and say that I personally do not consider Donald Trump a man of God. Not judging by the fruit, right? I'm sure he believes in God. I'm sure he believes that God is out there. But does he have a personal relationship with Jesus? I don't think so. But I do pray that it's legit for him. All the times that he kept referencing God, he said it a few times in the beginning of his speech. He said, I'm not supposed to be here, and I'm here because of Almighty God. Yeah. It's by his grace. It was a move of God. I'm not here because I'm lucky. I'm here because God, was there. He was beside me in that moment. And and I'm like, amen. God allowed it, for sure. Because you could have been dead.
Yeah.
And there's people who, PBD was one of them, that, he believes that if unfortunately Trump would have been assassinated, we might be in a very, very scary time in this country.
And again, and going back to the whole, did God protect Trump? That's, again, I don't know. But the logic for some people is like, yeah, God protected Trump because Trump is God's chosen one and blah, blah, blah. And maybe God did protect him, but it wasn't because for Trump, but God knew the consequences of that assassination, the country getting so divided that imagine people breaking out and civil war and the U.S. falls apart. I don't know. I really don't know. I'm just saying, like, again, I've always been careful with idolizing, especially a political figure. And I think there's a lot of idolizing Trump. There's been for years. Again, there might have been some divine intervention this past weekend. I don't know. But it might not have been. We like to play God and think that we know what God was thinking. Like, God protected him because that was God's chosen. Mm-hmm. Maybe not. Maybe it was just God saying, like, I'm protecting all y'all. Like, from what could have happened.
Yeah.
The assassination would have been successful. The assassination attempt. But
I would definitely say that it's also into a greater plan that is beyond our understanding, because I think we already are divided as a nation, right? Because there's some people that are for Trump and not for Trump. Right. So imagine that aspect of it. If that would have happened, like, it would have been wild on both sides. Yeah. So,
and it's crazy, man. How do we get to a point where you dislike someone so much that you're willing to go and shoot them? I mean, like, that's the saddest part about all of this. I have strong political convictions, yet I can have conversations with anybody, and I mean that. And I have friends who I agree with and I disagree with politically, and I love them just as much, equally. Like, I really do. I've had beautiful conversations, I've had heated conversations, but at the end of the day, it's love. Like, I love you, man. That's not going to change anything. And that's the problem, I think, in America especially. We've drifted away from being able to have a conversation. And when conversations stop happening, that's when vilifying and demonizing the enemy happens, right? Like,
Charlie Kirk says that all the time.
Yeah, actually,
shout out Charlie Kirk, come on the show. I'm just gonna shout out everybody.
Do you think because of a lack of having that conversation is that people are so quick to violence, right? And we're so quick to, like, man, I want to be heard. I want this point to be heard, right? But do you think that is the cause of so much, I guess, uproar per se?
Because people don't talk?
No, because they're not trying to hear other people's perspectives or point of view.
Right, and that people resort to violence.
Yeah.
And this
It
just
doesn't have to be just politics, right?
Yeah.
No. I was gonna actually go at it from, I guess, more spiritual way. So this country, right, unfortunately, was founded on violence, right?
Oh, yeah.
This country was founded on
The
violence.
British are coming.
The British are coming, correct? The birth of this country was unfortunately after a war, correct? And when Christopher Columbus got here, what did he do? He wrecked all those Indians, So again, this land has seen a lot of violence. And I think because of all that violence, my mom taught me this a long time ago that with certain areas, certain regions, there can be strongholds, spiritual strongholds. And I think one of the spiritual strongholds on this country as a whole is violence. I think the reason why people can't just sit down and have a conversation and it gets so heated that you end up killing someone is crazy to me.
I mean, I honestly don't even think it's an American issue. I think it's a human, it's a humanity issue.
Yeah.
It goes beyond America. I mean, killing people and taking over land.
Right, it's all over the place.
It's happened all throughout human.
I was just focusing
history.
on us.
I got you,
but
but
you're right.
But
all over the world.
You look at it. It starts in Genesis. Cain and Abel. They couldn't. Cain got jealous of Abel and just killed him. I mean,
over first fruits.
Who gave a better sacrifice?
Who gave a better sacrifice?
It's crazy, and it's like, I disagree with you. I'm going to vilify you. I'm not going to talk to you. So I'm just going to end you. And it's sad, man. It's sad where we've gotten to as a country. But I think that in the U.S., if you're a Christian, I think the most important thing, I think whoever's in office, whether it's Biden, Trump, whatever happens with Biden, I've read things this past weekend as well that he might not even be the nominee. So whoever's the next president, we should want them to be praying and hearing from the Lord. Like, I know that when Trump almost got assassinated, Biden was in church, and that's why he took a little longer to put a statement out. He was literally in church. And so again, going back to, like you were saying, I don't know if Donald Trump is a man of God. I personally don't think so yet. I mean, I haven't seen any fruit. Hopefully after this experience, he converts and really becomes a devout Christian. But I hope that Biden is actually hearing from the Lord too. Whoever's in office, I want them to hear from the Lord. Why wouldn't you want them to?
Right. And that's the principle. That's the principle behind what we're talking about, right? Or this part of the conversation, sorry, is you want the person that's in office to do the right thing. Regardless of if you like them or not, or if you voted for them or not, you didn't get your way, you still want that person to do good.
Right.
Yeah.
Something. You want them to do something right.
Yeah.
Whether it's the economy or border control or, world relations, stop these wars, whatever it is, you want that person to do right. So 1000%, I agree with you.
Were you going to say something, bro?
No, it was just my last point that I said is, like, do you think that's why people just resort, instead of a conversation, just resort to violence, right?
Yeah, and I think the problem too is that people have resorted, like people come into conversations with closed minds. Like, I have
already predisposed.
Yep, I have the truth. You do not. My way is right. Your way is wrong. So there's nothing you could tell me that will change my mind. Now, I believe you can have strong opinions, convictions, but just be open to hear a different thought, even if you disagree wholeheartedly with it. Yeah. I mean, I think just have a conversation. What does that cost you?
Yeah,
absolutely. It's just kind of being one of those situations like, okay, we don't agree. All right, have a nice day. That's it. It's like
agree or disagree, and that's it.
Keep
it moving.
And keep it moving. You don't have to, resort to a violence or to wish someone, anything negative. But I guess the stronghold maybe has developed something in America's brains that it's like, no, you can't leave that conversation until you prove them wrong.
Right.
And just wrong mindsets, wrong thinking.
Right. And it is what it is, man. Sometimes the Bible says it's better to lose an argument than to lose a friend.
That's good.
And that's very important.
I believe that. Because if we're called to make disciples, if we're called to preach the gospel, politics shouldn't be a hindrance to that. If you're a Democrat and I'm a Republican, or if I'm Democrat and you're Republican, and we don't see eye to eye politically, it's like, oh, then I'm not going to preach the gospel to you. No,
Right.
you're
The gospel goes beyond politics.
Correct. You're called to make disciples. You're not called to convert Republicans to Democrats or Democrats to Republicans.
Right.
So the politics should not have shouldn't hinder you from preaching the gospel, and that's the problem. We've vilified the other side. Whatever side you stand on, you've vilified and demonized the other side so much that you can't even have a conversation, that you resort to violence. Right. So I mean, it's crazy, man. Crazy times that we're living in. I mean, at the same time, I'm kind of not surprised. Like, what was next with Trump? Really, like, just again, got impeached twice. Almost went to jail. Might still go to jail. I mean, I don't know where the case is at. What's next? I mean, assassination. So I wasn't surprised at it happening. I think a lot of people were expecting it, but I was disappointed. Like, you know, when you expect something and you see the red flags happening, you're like, oh, we know what's next. But when you actually see it, I mean, I think Saturday was really sobering for me, because I was like, again, I don't care if you agree with him, don't agree with him, hate him, love him. What would have happened if that bullet would have gone through? Like, we would have seen an assassination on live television. And as opposed to 1980, or, you know, when Abraham Lincoln was shot, like, there was no social media back then. There was no rapid exchange of information and news. So that would have been all over the news. And you know how dramatic that would have been to so many people? Again, going back to, did God protect Trump? Maybe, but not because necessarily for Trump. That's the problem. People are like, oh, it was for Trump.
Yep.
God knows how traumatic that could have been for the entire world, for children, for people that might have had a past with gun violence. Like, God might have saved Donald Trump, but it wasn't for him. It might have been for everybody else, right? You never know.
And people tend to forget about JFK, you know?
Oh,
so
facts.
like, that was the last actual assassination that a president was shot at and died because of that. So
It's crazy.
to relive one of those moments in our generation right now, what we got to see, it was just like, wow.
I'll tell you this much. I love how RFK responded. I mean, that's so personal to him, right? His uncle was the one who was shot and killed. The way RFK, the current like independent candidate, the way he responded was beautiful. I mean, he just said, right now is not the time for division. Pray for Trump, pray for the country, because we need peace, we need unity. So, and I think that was the right response. Whatever you believe in, whether you hate Trump, hate Biden, love Biden, this country needs to come together. Because at the end of the day, if Biden succeeds, America succeeds. If Biden fails, America fails. If Trump succeeds, America succeeds. If Trump fails, America fails. It's like, as Christians, we need to be praying for whoever's in office, not just Trump.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who are you going to vote for?
Me, I'm still thinking about it. I reserve my right to privacy, and the Constitution tells me that I have the right to remain silent. So I plead the fifth. Dang, bro.
No, just kidding. But no, well, I mean, this is, I think, an interesting topic for us. I guess one last thing that I wanted to say was the change that I saw, you know, going back to, you know, that Trump looked like he, you know, had an encounter, you know, he had a close encounter with death, and he's probably seeing things very differently. Throughout his whole speech, that was an hour and a half long, he did not insult anybody. He didn't, that I can remember. He didn't insult anybody. He didn't raise his voice. He was obviously, you know, not commemorating. I guess he was, you know, mourning the loss of the people that died at the rally. The firefighter that died there. I don't know his name, but, you know, may he rest in peace. But, you know, he was mourning him, and the fact that they've raised like $6.3 million for the families affected at the shooting. That all of that, man, like, it was just a different side of him completely. So I don't know. Like I said, hopefully it's genuine. I pray that he keeps this up. I do genuinely pray that he's got people around him that are gonna, bring the gospel to him and really help him cultivate a relationship with the Lord. And the same for Biden. I pray the same for Biden. I pray the same for him as well, and or whoever might become the Democratic nominee. I don't know. It's not looking too good.
Yeah, have you guys seen that video of Biden trying to go up? I think is a plane, and that man like slips. It was recent, like, but it was bad.
Yeah, man.
Like
Yeah.
this man needed someone to just grab his arm and carry him or something.
Yeah.
Again, it's sad, man. It's sad. I mean, I think watching the debate, what was it, like a month ago or a couple weeks ago? Mm-hmm. It was just sad, dude. Like, it was just, I don't think, it's like seeing your grandpa be humiliated and embarrassed on national television. And I'm not just the only one saying that. I mean, clearly Democrats are also saying that to the point where they want to remove him and put another person. And so,
Yeah.
And I mean, some people could say the same for Trump. I mean, I do think that the fact that our two candidates, our two main candidates are, Trump is 78 or something?
Yeah, close to 80, and the other one's like 81,
82 or
82,
something.
Yeah.
It's like, man, we could do a little better. Like, we definitely character-wise, age-wise. I mean,
Like mental wise.
we could do better. But unfortunately, these are not the only candidates. You could go down other routes, but to each their own. Everybody has a choice to make, or not. Some people say, I don't care, I don't vote.
Yeah.
Just make sure you vote according to your own political convictions. Make sure you do your own research. Not vote because somebody's telling you to vote for a party or a candidate. Do your own research and pray about it. See what the Lord tells you. It's funny because I saw Tim Ross was talking about politics, and he actually said, I can see a Christian voting completely blue on the Christian ethic, and I can see someone voting completely red purely on the Christian
Because
ethic.
both parties have some sort of
Yeah.
values that we believe in. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting. Again, everybody has to. You have a right as a U.S. citizen to vote, to express your concerns, your what you want in this country. So go do it on the ballot. I mean, people literally died for that freedom. So I would encourage you to go exercise that. Whatever way you go, you vote. I support it.
I have a question, and something that you were just mentioning, Sandro, is like, just to get your opinions on it. Do you think that there should be a certain cap of an age that a president should be allowed to run up to a certain
I asked
age?
my brother that the other day.
I was just like, man, I'm kind of curious to get your take on it.
Because what's the youngest a president?
35.
35.
That means I got 2 years.
Yeah, but you also have to have I don't know what else. It's the age and what else?
Yeah,
That's it. I think that's it. 35, and that's it. You got to have a lot of money to
To run a
support.
campaign.
Yeah.
This is true.
I think that's it. I think that, and then there's the citizenship requirement, which, like, for example, me, I don't even know if hypothetically, if I wanted to run for president one day, I don't think I even could. I'm not sure.
Just kidding.
No, you heard it here first.
Where are you from again?
No, for real. I'm not sure how it works for Puerto Ricans. I really don't know. Were you born here or in Colombia?
No, I was born here.
Yeah, then I think you should, like, for example, PBD, he can never run for president because he was born in Iran.
Oh,
So
man.
I don't know what the case is with Puerto Ricans because we're technically part of the U.S. but not. So, but
Since 1967, right?
but I do think there should be age limits. I really do. I definitely think there should be term limits on the House of Representatives. I think there's people that have been in the House of Representatives for years. I mean, literally, we're talking about Biden on the left, but on the right, Mitch McConnell, the Republican, my goodness, what's the word? The majority leader of the Republicans in the House of Representatives.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's there anymore. But Mitch McConnell literally had like strokes live on television.
Oh, wow.
Like he's talking and then has a stroke, and it happened more than once. Again, but the gentleman is like really old, and so we have a lot of people that are really old in politics. And I think maybe I would, if there's term limits for governors, there's term limits for presidents, I think we should have them on the House of Representatives as well. So definitely age limit, term limits across the board, I would say.
Yeah. I remember I was talking to my brother the other day, and he told me something that I totally agree with. he said that this election coming up is definitely the most consequential, I think, in the history of this country, because I feel like there's so much on the line for both parties. There's so much on the line, and just the way that this has all unraveled before us, where we're like, holy cannoli, an assassination attempt. You don't know if the other guy's even going to make it, if he's going to step down and someone else has to take his place. My he said that it might be a little too late to change your horse, right? Because we're too close to the finish line for the Democrats to change their horse now and put somebody else. But, I mean, they got to do what they got to do.
I mean, we'll see. Today is Friday, July 19th. This episode will probably come out in
a few weeks.
I mean, I honestly don't think Biden's going to be the Democratic nominee. But that's just my opinion. I don't know.
You're going to vote for?
Ricky, you had another question?
Yeah, who are you going to vote for?
So in Puerto Rico, there's three main political parties.
Talk about
There's the pro-statehood party. There's the pro stay as we are party that want to stay as a commonwealth. And then there's the pro-independence party. I'm pro-statehood. I want Puerto Rico to become a state. So I can't vote in Puerto Rico, though. But if I was voting in Puerto Rico, I would vote for... Well, not even. I don't like the candidate actually running for the pro-statehood party.
Wait, time out. You can't vote in Puerto Rico?
No, not right now. Because I live here. I live in Florida.
So that means that...
So you have to live in Puerto Rico to vote?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
I mean, I technically maybe I could get around it because I have a house in Puerto Rico. So if I had I could say I live in Puerto Rico and lie and then vote in both elections, but I'm not going to do that.
Interesting. Oh, well.
I'll snitch.
Yeah, but politics is messy, man, and it's personal because my dad has always been involved in politics in Puerto Rico. He ran for the mayor of Caguas, which is a town in Puerto Rico. He ran for mayor in 2008, and that's when the first adultery happened. That's the first time my parents got divorced. Met a woman through the political campaign, and the rest is history. Second time they get remarried, 2019, my dad knew the governor that won the election. So the governor appoints him to be like in his cabinet, one of the executives for like the, what's it called? He was the executive of the gaming commission in charge of like horse racing, sports betting, casinos, etc. So my dad was like up there. He was like in the administration of the governor.
Yeah.
Again, his second time in politics. What happens? Again, through politics, meeting people, he unfortunately, my parents got divorced again. So I have a rough relationship with politics in Puerto Rico just because it's personal. I feel like it's ruined my family twice. So I'd rather be more in touch with politics in America. It hasn't hurt me as bad yet. So...
Oh, perfect. So that means that, you have a preference for the political party.
Well, I have till November 5th, so still going to be praying.
You're going to vote for...
My goodness, this 42 minutes. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. We hope you enjoyed this podcast, man. It's funny because Operation A5, our goal is to provide high quality conversations, high quality and meaningful conversations. And we hope that this is a space where you can sometimes detune from the world around you, and we're honored if you give us a couple minutes, an hour of your time to hopefully make you laugh, hopefully make you think, and if you don't know the Lord, to accept him today.
Do a salvation prayer.
I know, right? Do the salvation call.
It's how we end our services.
Yeah.
But I guess we could wrap it up here, boys. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time.
Peace.